Welcome back to MSG PM, presented by 7-Eleven. 7-Eleven, take it to 11. Now, for all you film buffs out there, especially walking up and down Tribeca, It Ain't Over premieres Saturday, June 11th at the BMCC Performing Arts Center in Tribeca. And joining me today on MSG PM is the director and the granddaughter of Yogi Berra. We got Sean Mullin and Lindsay Berra joining us on the show. How you guys doing? Welcome to MSG PM.
Great.
We are great. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having, man, listen, thanks for coming on. We had a nice, good time before the cameras started rolling, but we're going to get right down to business. Sean, you talked about a lot of the films back in the green room, but tell me how this particular project with Yogi Berra came together.
Yeah, I was approached by Peter and Mike Soboleff, who I'd worked with on a prior film, and they had a connection to the Berra family, and they had actually recently seen that, this is back in 2018.
Right.
It's been 4 years. They had recently seen the documentary about Mr. Rogers and wanted to do something in the same vein, but for Yogi, and they asked me if I'd be interested in directing. And I'll be honest, when they first approached me, I took a beat and I said, well, I don't know, he seems too perfect. He seemed like he had too much of a perfect life. Like, where's the drama? What's the story?
Yeah.
So I did a little more research, and then the deeper I dug, I started to really learn that this is a guy who was overlooked at every turn in his life, from childhood all the way through till the end of his career. So yeah, it jumped on it and it had a great time.
Well, what's very unique about this story is, Lindsay, how you got involved. Obviously, you are the granddaughter of Yogi Berra, but you're an accomplished sports journalist yourself. How did you kind of get involved with Sean in making this film?
When I found out they were going to do the documentary, my biggest thing was making sure we got enough people interviewed, and all the people that I thought should be interviewed, because I'm sure Sean had people, but I was like, no, I want this person and this person and this person. So I just started talking to him about who we should start to reach out to, and got involved that way.
Yeah.
And then I was going to be interviewed for the documentary, like a lot of the Berra family members, my uncles, and I think after the interviews, they were like, oh, she kind of tells good stories. And at first, there was going to be a famous person being the narrator, and then they decided it was going to be me, with no voiceover experience at all. So
now you have plenty.
We'll see.
Yeah. Listen, all you need is one, and he got it, so there's nothing wrong with that. Back in the green room, we were having a fun conversation about Yogi-isms and things that were said and not said. So, Sean, in the process of making this film, what was the one thing that surprised you that you learned about Yogi?
Oh my goodness! I mean, so much. I think it's really rare, unfortunately, in this day and age, to make a film about somebody who just consistently just did the right thing for his entire life. At every turn, he just did the right thing, and that was really refreshing. And I don't know if it was necessarily surprising, but it was really great. And then, yes, with the Yogi-isms, we had a great, one of my favorite sections in the film, actually, we talked to a bunch of people like, Billy Crystal and Vin Scully and Bob Costas and Joe Torre and Derek Jeter. So we had some really big names, but we also got some really select specialists. And so we, like the mental skills coach for the Colorado Rockies, Doug Chadwick, came in to talk, and he has this really great section talking about simplexity, about how Yogi was able to really boil down these massive, complex issues into simple kind of phrases.
Yeah, smart people always sound smart to other smart people. Making smart things simple, that's real genius there.
Simplicity.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you talk about the Yogi-isms, you can obviously see all the Yogi Berra stats, but as his granddaughter, what was he like outside of baseball? What was Yogi like in real life?
I always tell people that my grandfather in real life was exactly what you guys saw on TV. What you saw was what you got with him. There were no airs. He never tried to be someone he wasn't. And everyone always asks, did he say the Yogi-isms at home? He did. But I do think we make such a big deal about the Yogi-isms, and part of my goal in making this documentary was to make people remember how great he was as a baseball player, because I think at the end of the day, these Yogi-isms kind of overshadowed how good he really was. People think of him as this funny guy with big ears who said a lot of wacky things, but some people know 18-time All-Star, 10-time World Series champ, 3-time MVP, but I think it sometimes gets lost in the shuffle that he was really one of the greatest catchers of all time. And I want the documentary to put him back in the conversation with Johnny Bench and Pudge Rodriguez and Yadi Molina, who's still racking up RBIs. I want them to think about Grandpa, even though he was several generations ago, as still one of the best.
Yeah, I think when it comes to a lot of fans of the Yankees and with Yogi, I don't know if they're sort of like forgetting how good he was, but I just think he was just such a huge personality.
Yeah.
It's almost like, what do you think of first, the Hall of Fame player or the incredible quotes? You know what I'm saying?
Well, most people also don't realize that he really, I mean, he came back from World War II, he was in D-Day, and he meets Babe Ruth, okay, and then he is mentored by DiMaggio, and then he plays alongside Mantle, and then, he helps groom, Guidry and Randolph and Mattingly, and then he mentors Jeter. So from Ruth to Jeter, Yogi really was the backbone of the Yankees. There's no one else who can claim that, and that's something I think people have forgotten.
Yeah, that's incredible. The influence that he's had all over this super storied franchise cannot be understated, and I think this film is definitely going to get people talking about it. Now, you're doing the film festival circuit, you know what I'm saying? You're doing the shopping around, and we talked about getting, the right interviews and getting Lindsay involved. But what has been like one of the biggest things about making this film, like outside of just getting the right interviews, especially when it comes to shopping an independent film?
One of the biggest things about getting it made, as far as just like, we were fortunate enough to get, I think just the cooperation from the Berra family was incredible. Yeah. So, having Larry, Tim, and Dale, come on board, and really they were so incredibly wonderful in addition to Lindsay. And I think also we were really fortunate to partner. MLB was really great with us with archival and stuff like that. So it's just, I think any time we approached anybody about this subject matter, about Yogi, every single person was like, anything you need, whatever you need. Everybody just loved him. He was so beloved. So
that's a perfect segue because, he's one of those guys where you just hear the name or you hear the quotes or you watch the baseball or you're just a Yankee fan in general. That name just resonates, especially in this city. So, Lindsay, my question for you is, in your opinion, why to this day, in 2022, is Yogi still so beloved to this day and age?
I say this a lot, that Grandpa was kind of a very little microcosm of the American dream, right? He's an Italian immigrant. Everybody can see themselves in an immigrant story. He's a veteran. A lot of people can see themselves in a veteran story. He was underestimated his whole life, told he was too short, too funny looking, too ugly to be a Yankee. So he had to prove a lot of people wrong and fight some adversity. Who hasn't had to do that? And then there were people that saw him play and just kind of identified with him as an athlete. So there's so many people that see a piece of themselves in my grandfather. And that is kind of compounded by the fact that when he met people, he was always so nice to people. Yeah. He was very approachable. He would take the time to talk to you. He treated, like Bob that he met in the parking garage, the same as the mailman, the same as the president of the United States. And that was something that was not lost on people. And I think he put out a lot of love into the world, and it comes back to him in spades.
There's no better colloquialism than that. You get out what you put in. And I think sports just connects so many people, and especially when you have a personality like that, it's always going to resonate even long after your time here. So my obvious next question is, do you both have a favorite Yogi-ism? That's an actual Yogi-ism, by the way, not the fake ones that go around Instagram every couple of months. Lindsay, you first.
I like the existential ones. If the world were perfect, it wouldn't be. The future ain't what it used to be. But if we have time, can I tell my Yoo-hoo one?
We got plenty of time. Bob will tell us when we ain't got no time.
People always ask me to tell a Yogi-ism that they haven't heard before, and there's just not a lot of those. But in 1958, when my grandfather and Mickey Mantle were introduced as the pitchmen for Yoo-hoo chocolate, I don't know what they call it, milk beverage drink.
I don't know if it was milk or not.
It's not dairy.
No offense to the Yoo-hoo folks, but yeah, I'm pretty sure it wasn't milk.
There was a female reporter in the front row at that press conference, and Grandpa remembered the story because there were not a lot of female reporters at the time, and she raised her hand and said, "Excuse me, is that hyphenated?" asking about Yoo-hoo, and he said, "Lady, it ain't even carbonated." That's one of my favorites.
Classic Yogi. Yeah. Sean, do you got one?
I've got a few. I mean, one of mine is a pretty popular one, but it's popular for a reason. It's nobody goes there anymore. It's too crowded. He was talking about his favorite restaurant, which I love. And then there was also a time where he was driving with the family, and he said, "Yeah, we're lost, but we're making great time."
There it is.
So
I'm gonna steal that one when I go home. Listen, I got a couple Yogi-isms over here, so I'm just gonna run through those for the Gen Zers that may not know. It's deja vu all over again.
That's a good one.
Yep.
All pitchers are liars or crybabies. 90% of the game is half mental. That's my my favorite right there.
Yeah, that's good.
When you come to a fork in the road, take it. And I never said most of the things I said. Last question. I don't know if we got any time to get this in there. Lindsay, is there any Yogi-isms out there that is widely believed to be a Yogi-ism that you want to really just end it right here? Listen, my grandpa did not say this. Which one is it?
The one that comes up all the time every year at Valentine's Day, and I know it's on the wall at Nationals Park in Washington, D.C., is, I don't even know it right, love is the most important thing in the world, but baseball is pretty good too. It's something like that, but Grandpa did not, definitely, hands down, did not say that one.
Good
and
job,
a lot
Nationals.
of the others, a lot of them are made up by his pal Joe Garagiola too, so that's okay. We love Joe.
So last question before we get you out of here.
Sure.
What do you want people to take away from this film after they see it?
I really would love for people to take away that this is not just baseball lovers will love this. I mean, Yankee lovers, I mean, those are easy kind of targets for this film. But it's not about baseball, and it's not about the Yankees, really. It's really about a life well lived and how important that is. And ultimately, you know, I think making this film was a lot about our family of filmmakers coming together, and the film is really about family. I think,
Incredible.
at the end of the day, so.
Incredible. Film Buffs, New York City. It Ain't Over premieres Saturday, June 11th at the BMCC Performing Arts Center in Tribeca. For Sean Mullin, Lindsay Berra, thank you so much.
Thank you so much
for kicking
having
it with us. Of course, man,
Great.
definitely.